And tonight we're going to be talking about specifically the lunar eclipse that's happening this June 5th, which I believe is Thursday. And I think it's around 3 p.m. And then there are 3 eclipses happening. So we have a solar eclipse that comes 2 weeks later on June 21st, and then another lunar eclipse that follows that solar eclipse on July 5th. Now, the June 21st and the July 5th eclipses are a pair, but this one that we're dealing with right now is kind of a loner, which is very strange. So we're going to talk a little bit about why there are 6 eclipses this year, which is pretty amazing. All right, so before we get started, we just want to give a shout out to Lord Ganapati, the patron lord of astrology, remover of obstacles. So you can join in or just feel the vibes. We're going to chant Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And we just want to also send our gratitude to all of our teachers and our gurus. All right, so we will take a deep breath in and again. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Great, so we ask for Ganesha's blessings and for all technical difficulties to be removed, and for this information, this cosmic knowledge to come easily to all of us, that we can understand it, digest it, and use it in our lives on a practical level. Anatomy of an eclipse. Just so you have a visual of what's actually happening. On the left here, we have the solar eclipse, and what that means is the sun's light gets eclipsed from the earth. As you can see, the moon aligns, well, the sun, the moon, and the earth all align, and at the same time, the nodes, Rahu, Ketu, the north node and the south node are the 2 little guys that actually cause eclipses, and they are here aligned as well. So there's a big lineup, and that's when we actually have an eclipse. Now, if the nodes are not there, we have a new moon or we have a full moon. So the nodes make all the difference because they're the little troublemakers out there in the universe. So as you can see here, here's the earth, the moon, and the sun. They're all aligned, and the moon is actually blocking the sun's rays from reaching the earth. So the moon and the sun are kind of one. They're aligned. It signifies, a seed being planted, an initiation, and new growth, a new cycle to begin, and that cycle is 28.5 days. Now, there are magical numbers between the distance between the earth and the moon, and the distance between the sun and the moon, that when they all line up, they all appear to our eye from earth to be the same size, and that's why they're able to eclipse each other. So like if we're looking at the moon looks as big as the sun, for example. And then over here on the right side, we have a lunar eclipse. So you can tell from the photo that what's getting eclipsed is any light reaching the moon. So you see the earth is now between the sun and the moon, eclipsing all that reflected light to the moon. So that's the anatomy. Does anyone, if anyone has any questions while we're going along, if something's really confusing, please, reach out by raising a hand, which I believe, if you click on participants, then you can always raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you. And now we're going to go into the symbology of an eclipse. Now, eclipses upset the natural order as day becomes night and night becomes day, right? Because you have the shutting off of the light. And eclipses are known to be portals for exponential growth. They are a time of rapid change, both internally and externally. Usually external change is a reflection of internal change. They are time periods that don't last that long. For example, this eclipse coming up, there's like a 3-hour window. So the hour sort of when the eclipse is happening and how long it lasts. So you can easily commune with cosmic energy in any way, shape, or form, and whatever that means for you. So it's a great time for spiritual and healing practices because they're powerful during these times and transformative. And what tends to happen, as I was thinking about, an eclipse, and a lot of times we feel people get fearful or they think there are only negative events that are happening. So I just came up with some key words here. So during an eclipse, we get activated or triggered. There's typically an unexpected, something unexpected can happen, or we're surprised. If there is a letting go or an ending, or some kind of release of something, energy, it can be, it doesn't have to be like a person or anything huge. It could just be like releasing some kind of energy. And through that release, we're able to grow. And then eclipses bring transformation, right? And that's change. And then ultimately, I misspelled this word, ultimately purification and healing. The do's and don'ts. So quickly just getting into the do's and don'ts of what you're, during the eclipse. And I always say it's a 3-day thing. So the day before, the day of, and the day after. Now it's best to engage in, activities like meditation, healing practices, walks in nature, chanting, to take a shower before and after the eclipse if you want to get really, into this.
What happens during talking about the biology now, we're talking about the science of the eclipse from a Vedic perspective, from an Ayurvedic perspective, is the molecules in the air literally become rajasic and tamasic, which are Sanskrit words meaning feisty, heavy, thick, fiery. And it's almost like if you think of the blood platelets, when blood platelets in the body get sticky, it gives rise to illness in the body. So to stay healthy in our body, in our inner ecology, our blood platelets should be moving freely, not heavy, not sticky. Otherwise, we have immune reaction. We become sick. So what happens in nature when the molecules get sticky like that is more virus, more bacteria, more heavy qualities are in the air during the 3-hour period, and whatever you want to associate with heavy qualities, but it's just not a time where it's clean and pure. The eclipses aren't necessarily always negative, but from a biological 3-hour window, it's just a heavy, sticky time where they say even pregnant women shouldn't go outside. It's really not a time where you want to go like, take a big breath of fresh air, because it's not fresh air during those 3 windows. That's why the Vedas say, stay home and get in a steam bath or a nice sauna or a tub, eat clean, have light salad, do some juicing. Yeah, even fast. So, when I say eat clean, that means it's going to be light and you wash it really well, because it does tend to become a time where food poisoning and food spoils because of the tamasic and rajasic molecules all about. You'll even start noticing now fruit flies are more abundant. I just opened my trash in the back, and this is TMI, but there were maggots in the trash, and there've never been maggots. So all kinds of stuff starts to grow around eclipses simply because of the Rahu Ketu energy. They are the serpents, they are the darkness, and there's always going to be darkness where there's light. So it's just a very dark time, a heavy time during life on earth for just those 3 hours, but no fear at all. It's just a time for meditation. So there's a time and there's a place, a season and a reason, and to have this awareness and this knowledge will help you navigate your life and your blueprint so much more easily. We shouldn't be going outside during this time, because who knows what, you could, more likely to get a mosquito bite, even that simple, more likely to trip and fall, more likely to contract a cold or a virus, more likely to, more bugs in the air, just, not a time to be enjoying nature. So just quiet down, go into meditation, close your eyes during that time. And if you're really bored and you don't want to meditate, clean out your closets, clean out your refrigerator, do something that is in purification mindset, so that at least you're not find those 3 hours.
The other thing I want to add to that is don't make any major decisions right around an eclipse. Just wait. It's well worth the wait. Don't push your agenda, you know, where you're getting into arguments with people. You just want to keep the energy calm, because the energy of an eclipse is exaggerated, right? Everyone, you get triggered. It's the emotions are running high. And avoid gatherings. Now, there's a lot of, you know, I was invited to go to a peaceful protest on Sunday, and I would really like to go, but I'm also kind of like, wow, that's really close to the eclipse. Mm-hmm. Actually, Sunday might be okay, but I'm also a little wary of going. Like, I don't think it's an ideal time to go, because things can just happen and get out of control quickly. Karyn, remember when we talked about how actually during an eclipse, time speeds up, and that's why food can spoil so quickly. That's why there are guidelines of, you know, like eating light, eating salads, eating fruit. But I just find that really fascinating. It's like this time warp, or what were we saying? It's like
the time-space continuum. It's like a little blip or a hiccup in the time-space continuum, because Rahu and Ketu don't follow the rules. They don't adhere to time. They are the sort of the magic in the chart. It can be dark magic. It can be good magic, because all in the end, all news is good news. They're there to purify our lives. They're there to challenge us, to bring adversity so that we can rise above that and transcend to higher levels. So we thank Rahu and Ketu, but they don't follow the rules. They're the rebels, rule breakers of the chart. So if our earth plane is here tracking minutes and time, and we're following, you know, the divine laws and laws of nature, Rahu and Ketu will come around and mess it all up, because they want things to be unpredictable, because in the unpredictability of things, the uncertainty of things is where the greatest growth happens.
And it's fascinating, because they actually make day become night and night become day. I mean, that's the ultimate of the tricksters.
Yes.
Okay, so do's and don'ts, overview of the webinar. Okay, so we have this eclipse webinar today, and we're mainly focusing on the July 5th eclipse that's coming up in the sign of Scorpio and in the star sign of Jyotish, which is kind of like, think of it as the sign behind the signs. And then Karyn and I are planning on doing a second webinar on the solar and the next set of eclipses coming up towards the end of the month, June 21st. And if anyone here wants to attend that webinar, we're offering it for you guys for $10. And we'll have the same format, although we might not get into all this stuff depending on who's there. And we'll look at your chart in terms of the next 2 eclipses. So there's one June 21st. This one is very powerful. It's on the solstice. And it's also an eclipse that happens in the same exact degree of Gemini, which is Ardra Nakshatra, that happened in 2001. A little bit connected to the 9/11 energy. And then the lunar eclipse that follows that is in Sagittarius. So the next set of eclipses is really only activating 2 houses in your individual chart. So that's going to be, it'll be a powerful house axis, and we'll get into that a little later. Karyn and I are available for eclipse readings. If anyone is interested, you can just directly contact us. But Karyn was going to talk a little bit about why there are 6 eclipses this year and the numerology of it.
Okay, great. I will be happy to share that. But first I want to talk a little bit about the nakshatras and explain Scorpio Jyeshta and then Sagittarius Purva Ashada. And so what is Jyeshta? What is Purva Ashada? They're
we're going to go into that.
We're going to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So that they don't feel lost. So there's 27 of them, and of the 27, this is
Okay,
what
you can talk about that. I'm going to go
Yeah.
into the meanings of it.
No, I won't go into the meanings.
Okay,
Just to
gotcha.
explain that each planet sits in a lunar mansion, and it gives flavor to that planet. And there's 27 of them. So with Scorpio sitting in the flavor of Jyeshta, which is isn't the most joyful part of the sky, or the most joyful mansion, but it can give rise to joy after it cleans out. It does a purification transformation. Then we can, that calm after a storm. That's what's coming right now. So that's what I wanted to explain about these, because sometimes when you see these Sanskrit words, it's kind of ominous looking. Okay, so what I would like to explain about the 2020 numerology is when you add 2020, you get a 4. And according to numerology, a 4 represents death. And it is a portal number. And it's sort of connected to the 4th chakra, the heart. And a lot of people can exit through the heart energy. So souls can come and go through the body, right through here, this portal, and the crown of the head. Those are 2 main portals within the physical body. So the number 4 itself can represent endings and death. Also, when there's a 0 at the end of any number sequence, it's another portal. It's actually a hole. So we have a 4 and a 0 in 2020 is a 0. So we are, as a collective, in a very transformative time, a double whammy, where many souls have contracted to leave the planet because they're not vibrating at this vibration. This Mother Earth is ready to make a vibrational shift, and those that are willing to stay here are going to elevate. So, and those that are choosing not to are going to go somewhere else. And that's as simple as it is. It's a soul contract that the Earth is put out there. So we can choose, do we want to stay or do we want to go? If we're to stay, we're going to need to meditate, raise our vibration, stay out of fear, and choose to make decisions based on love, not fear. And then we will be part of the collective that stays here. Those that are running around with their heads chopped off, making decisions based on fear and displaced aggression, they may end up losing their lives because we are in a massive portal. And if they lose their lives, that's okay. It's a soul contract. They're going to go to where they vibrate to. So that's simple. I hope that makes sense. Yes? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already seen an overwhelming amount of death happen. We reached the 100,000 number of deaths of people here in America, and it's very tragic. So that makes a lot of sense, and I guess we try to grapple with all the death around us and all the sadness and recent events that have come to light, and it's difficult to understand. So we're hoping that this cosmic knowledge can help bring some understanding for all of you who are wondering, what the heck is going on. And I think as we talk more, we'll bring to light some other things that are going on. Specifically, let's see, the signs where the eclipses happen. Okay, so the signs where this next eclipse is happening is Taurus, Scorpio. And then the second pair is happening in Sagittarius, and Gemini. So the signs where the eclipses happen and the upcoming change of signs for the nodes, which are Rahu, Ketu, the 2 tricksters, right now they are in Gemini and Sagittarius. Usually where the nodes are, that's where the eclipses happen. Now, an eclipse can happen with the nodes 18 degrees on either side away from the sun or moon. This is probably too much information. But that's why this lunar eclipse is kind of like a foreshadowing of what's to come, because the nodes are going to move out of Sagittarius and Gemini and move into Taurus and Scorpio in late September 23rd. So we see this, so this lunar eclipse coming up is kind of a foreshadowing of this Taurus Scorpio energy. And so what it's showing us is the transition of the future collective and consciousness, because the nodes, Rahu, Ketu, drive society and the collective consciousness and show where the focus is. Like we're all focused on COVID-19 now, we're all focused on George Floyd. They bring the exaggeration and the focus of the collective. So we have eclipses have global and personal effects. And then the general rule is that if the eclipse is visible where you live, like the one that was visible in 2017 across America, and we had all that flooding and upheaval back then, it tends to be more intense if it's visible where you live, for you and for that country. So I think this lunar eclipse coming up is visible in Asia, parts of Europe, South America, and Africa. Now, okay, we talked about an eclipse as a portal. So they always bring unexpected shifts and transformations. The veil between the worlds are thin. So that's why it's a great time to do these practices. And even just attending this webinar tonight is kind of like a remedy, and it's soothing the possible negative results of it, because you're making an effort to be aware of it, to understand it, and to live in harmony with it. Time speeds up. And I think the nodes kind of behave like, I was thinking about it, when you have that zip file and you download it on your computer and it pressurizes all the information into that little thing. That's it's like a pressurized subconscious download, because the nodes work on a psychological level. That's how they affect us. They're in our mind. They're directly linked to the moon. So moon in astrology is mind. And the nodes are psychological, and they always bring confusion, and they always bring some sort of knot that we feel like we can't untie. And we all have it. We all have the nodes in our chart. And they are also agents of personal transformation and evolution. Okay. So currently we are transitioning from the Gemini-Sag polarity to the Taurus-Scorpio. So this is what the eclipses are showing. We got the one now, Taurus-Scorpio, then Gemini-Sag, and then another one in December that's also in Sagittarius and Gemini. So this lunar eclipse is foreshadowing the Taurus-Scorpio energy that's coming up, and that energy from September, I think it's September 2020 to February 2021. So that Taurus-Scorpio energy will play out for 18 months. Now, what have we been dealing with since the nodes have been in Gemini Sagittarius? It's been all about facts versus belief. And what is the truth? The paradigm of our collective truth has literally been destroyed, and we don't know what's true anymore, or what to believe anymore, right? We have no idea. Media, it's the whole media fake news phenomenon. So this is where the nodes have been doing their handiwork. Karyn and I talked a lot about this, and what's really important as we're moving away from this fake news, and it'll continue, because remember, we have eclipses in Gemini Sag, which is it's that axis, fact versus faith, and fact versus what you believe. So it's important that we be in touch with what is in your heart and what you believe your true teachings to be. You want to be connected to something higher than yourself, something that gives you support, that's uplifting, that's positive, good teachings that leave you feeling good, balanced, and grounded. It's really important right now to just ground yourself in that reality. And nature is amazing for that too, just to really be connected to the earth at this time, since we're all home, and that's really all we can do is sort of go out into nature. Now, touching on the upcoming, okay, so we have the Gemini upcoming eclipses in Gemini Sag. Now, Rahu has been in the nakshatra. It's in the sign of Gemini, and it's in that lunar mansion called Ardra. Ardra is a very explosive nakshatra. Now, he's moved out, but this is kind of where we're coming from. 9/11 happened under Ardra, Hiroshima, and COVID-19, just to name a few. So it's it's that kind of nakshatra that really brings, you know, recessions, disease, war, and strife. So as we transition, and remember this lunar eclipse now is in the Taurus Scorpio axis. So we're going to get a taste of where we're going. And the Taurus Scorpio house axis, okay, Taurus owns a house in everyone's chart and Scorpio owns a house. Their natural house axis is the second house, which is self-sustenance, and then the eighth house, which is other people, like self-sustenance is like food, diet, speech, family, things that support and sustain you. And then the opposite of that is like other people that support and sustain you, other people's resources, if you want to look at it like that. So we will see the positive and negative expressions of these things come to light. Karyn, you want to take over a little bit? My voice is starting to go.
Sure. So everybody has Scorpio and Taurus somewhere in their charts, and we're going to look at that today because the eclipse is happening on those fields of living, and every house governs a field of living. So we're going to find where Scorpio sits in your chart and where Taurus sits in your chart. What house does it own? Which house is it lighting up? So that particular house governs a field of living, like children, like career, like romance. So we'll find out in your chart, where is Taurus and Scorpio, because that's where the nodes are going to go in and cause a purification, a lighting up, sort of an electrification of these specific themes in your life. And they're not always negative. Sometimes an eclipse like this can bring in someone, even an experience that is extremely wonderful and transformational, or it can actually eclipse something that shouldn't be there anymore because it's no longer serving your highest and best, and maybe you were just, you know, too lazy to move it out of your life, so the planets will do it for you. That's how this works. And we're going to look at each of your charts to look at what house, what field of living is coming up front and center for you, so you can be prepared, have some awareness, and not feel blindsided. And even just like Kristy said, having this knowledge and immersing yourself in this sacred wisdom is what we call an upaya. It's a remedy in and of itself. So already, just by being here, your eclipse energy, any negativity around it can be softer, which is so great. So I love that. And just studying anything that's scriptural, anything sacred at this time will mitigate negativity. So where else can I go with this?
Well, let's talk about, so Rahu is going to move into Taurus, but this, so let's talk a little bit about the Scorpio Taurus themes in general. Now Taurus, so we were talking about what might happen, like once the nodes go into Taurus and Scorpio. So we're going to be dealing with diets. We're going to be dealing with food, farming, self-care, values, nature, animals, how we're treating animals. And these are the things that are going to come into focus, remember, and exaggeration. So the negative side, you know, more harm to the earth, the animals, there may be famine, again, you know, greed and power, which is the Scorpio side of it, also are going to come into focus. K2 in Scorpio shows a letting go of big money, power structures, greed, control, but everybody is going to, so Taurus Scorpio is about survival, and everyone's survival vulnerabilities will get triggered. They might get triggered on this lunar eclipse, but once those nodes move into those two signs in September and for 18 months, it's going to get triggered because insurance companies will be in turmoil, banks, finances. And then Karyn and I, remember Karyn, we were like, even maybe freedom of speech lost, or
Yes.
at least somebody trying to do that, because Taurus is the natural sign that rules speech.
Yeah, so YouTube is already doing that. It's already cutting people's YouTube videos right out of the public. So the second house, that's all second house, and that's all Taurus in the natural chart. But I do think there's a possibility we could have a windfall. You know, in 1929, there was a depression, a Great Depression, and I was researching on Wikipedia one of the reasons we got out of that depression was a few like real estate mongers, very wealthy people collaborated and donated. So they helped our economy immensely and pulled us out of that depression. This is eighth house activity. Eighth house means other people's money. It's even inheritance, it's unearned money. So
Lump
when
sum.
that becomes activated, which it is going to be, and you know, the eclipse cycle goes about 6 months. So anytime between now, Friday, and 6 months is when all this can play out. And then after 6 months, we have another eclipse and then we have something else lit up. But during this time, maybe we get somebody to donate some money, maybe not to the whole world or to just United States, maybe even to certain few people. But that house, the eighth, is activated. We could get some generous donations from people. So I'm hoping that that's true. But we also have to look at Mars and Venus because they're the lords of Scorpio and Taurus. So
Okay,
Taurus,
so
you want to talk about that? Yeah.
yeah, just well, before we move on, just want to talk about, so these are kind of the themes, the upcoming trends of the collective destruction, confusion, and transition that the nodes will bring, but also hope and evolution. And this energy really starts September 23rd, 2020 through February 2021. Again, we're going to see these themes highlighted with this lunar eclipse though. Right now, Rahu, the node, moved out of Ardra, that really explosive nakshatra, that lunar mansion, and has
Thank God.
and has now moved into Mrigasira. Mrigasira is the symbol of a deer's head. So, I mean, it was literally like the minute it went into that nakshatra, that lunar mansion, we had this herd-like mentality of all these protestings, right? Because deers run in herds. So just some thoughts about this is that, you know, also deers are very anxious. So there's going to be a lot of anxiety, possibly around transportation now that things are reopening and we're going back to work. I think transportation might be huge between now and the end of the year. That's how long it will stay in a lunar mansion. It'll stay there from now until the end of the year. So there'll be a lot of fear of reopening and traveling, going back to work. The symbol is a deer, like I said, a deer's head. Anxiety will increase around transportation, panic, and herd-like events. So immediately, George Floyd's murder. And you know, herd-like gatherings, marches, protests. The nakshatra Mrigashira is connected to the planet Mars, and Mars is a fighter. So he wants to fight. He wants to rebel. So we're getting the societal unrest. We're getting division. Karyn was talking about, you know, people defriending people on Facebook due to differences of opinion. Mars is the planet that makes us want to fight and argue. So we have to, and especially with this lunar Scorpio moon eclipse coming up, it's ruled by the sign Mars. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Mars and Venus when we get here into what this lunar eclipse in Scorpio is about. And I guess, let me just run through this slide quickly and then Karyn, you can go, we can talk about that and then we're gonna get right into your charts. Okay, so the significance of a lunar eclipse. The Earth, going back to this, the Earth comes between the sun and the moon. So consciousness is blocked. What it means is that our subconscious mind is stronger and unconscious motivations may even gain power during this time. It's kind of like we're just submerged into the shadow mind. Emotions are heightened and it's very easy to get triggered, very easy. I remember the last lunar eclipse, Karyn and I both got completely triggered and I can't remember what happened, but we were laughing so hard about it. It happens. It just, you know, it's like suddenly you just, I don't know. So be careful with what you are consuming, even mentally. You know, I just think about like my husband asking me to watch some, you know, like psycho drama cop movie before I go to bed, but you don't want to do that, you know, like protect yourself. Because the feelings get exaggerated and you can really play into that fear and paranoia quite easily. And this is Scorpio, it's intense. Scorpio can be kind of not a dark sign, but it can definitely go to the dark side, but it has that inner strength and that resilience and resource to deal with it. But again, we don't want to find ourselves getting stuck in fear or conspiracy theory. Try to bring yourself into something that's, you know, again, calming, the opposite, like Taurus, calming and peaceful, and just a cow grazing on the grass in the field. If you feel like your mind is getting stuck in a negative loop or emotions are just running high, one quick shamanic remedy from one of our friends here, Annette, is that when the thought appears to you, whatever that negative thought is, you can visualize and offer it by blowing it into an imagined flame, like a candle flame, or even if you have a little fire, that would be ideal, I guess, or even a candle flame. So imagined or real. So you're sort of like offering that thought to be purified. That's the idea. It's a great time to get any kind of a reading, any kind of healing work. It's awesome because these things can help bring awareness to energy that's stuck that we might not be able to just, you know, get out on our own. The effects of the lunar eclipse give results quickly. Because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, that's about how fast you might feel the eclipses, the effects of this eclipse. Remember, an eclipse is a portal. It's like being in a twilight zone. Its purpose is to bring things to light, our unconscious motivations, secrets, so we can transform and evolve. And that's another thing, Karyn, if you want to talk about the secrets coming out.
Yes. So if you have any questions that are unanswered, this is the time that those answers will miraculously appear in an unexpected way, like you would never have imagined that you would find out the answer to that question in that particular way, which is why it's really helpful to get a reading, not necessarily with Kristy and I. You can do your own, pull a fairy card, pull an angel card, or just go into meditation. Because the veil is thin, you will get your answers. You will get messages. Go to sleep the night before the eclipse. Ask your angels to give you answers to questions you've always wanted to know answers to, and you will get those answers. This is a time for you to step on the other side of the veil, where, you know, it's not always dark on the other side. It's filled with fairies and angels, and you have access to them now more than ever during this eclipse.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so last little piece is we're just going to talk more specifically about the energies of this lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. And remember, everybody has Scorpio in their chart, and we're going to look at everyone's chart, so don't worry. If you don't have a planet there, it doesn't matter. It's happening June 5th at 3:12 p.m. Eastern in the sign of Scorpio. So you'll have to do the time zone, you know, for your location. But just try to keep in mind, you know, so like on the East Coast from, you know, 1:30-ish to, I don't know, 4:35, just lay low. Stay indoors, shower, meditate, do whatever. pull fairy cards. General effects of Scorpio and Jyotish. So bringing to light our vulnerabilities and our liabilities. This is a very Scorpio thing too. It's sort of like this karmic accountability. You know, it's like your own resources are like Taurus, right? And then other people's money and other people's resources, like taking a loan, for example, it's a liability. It's like you owe them something. So this is how Taurus and Scorpio kind of work. But Scorpio is all about merging with others, whether it's on an energy level, whether it's financial, physical, karmically, psychically. It's intense. So I don't know, we just kind of coined this, I love this term, karmic accountability with this sign. Deep-seated fear and insecurities can show up with Scorpio. So here's something too. Specifically, the support that we get from others may go MIA. Okay, so you might be dependent on somebody for something, right? And suddenly it's not there. Like, how about everybody's paycheck? I mean, that happened, but something that you're depending on, could just kind of go away. Or maybe you ever have those days where you're just down in the dumps, you're in a black hole, and you are like trying to phone a friend and every friend is unavailable. So it's just like MIA, right? This is what can happen, and it's unexpected and it's unintentional. Because it's Scorpio and Taurus. Remember, Taurus rules your bank, how much money you have in the bank, and then Scorpios could be the banks, how much money they have. And so a fear of lack of resources, not having enough money or enough support. We may all feel vulnerable there somehow, some way it could show up. So extra sensitivity about the pre-existing anxiety because of the situation we're in the world, this pandemic. So we're all, this is why all these protests are happening, not even just here in America about George Floyd, but all over the world, because everyone is just, already in a state of anxiety and insecurity about the future. So watch your speech, watch what you consume. That's the Taurus end of it that can help balance out these energies, and consumption on all levels, like we were saying, good TV, good speech, good food. And then Karyn, you want to talk a little bit about the Venus retrograde situation and friendships and families and how that's all kind of ripe for some craziness as well, I guess.
Yeah. So what's going on right now with Venus is it's retrograde until the 25th of June, which brings back past lovers, past girlfriends, because Venus governs romance, opulence, and females. So you'll have a chance to reconcile with, unless maybe you already have, with past lovers that maybe needed closure, as well as, since it is Venus and Mars is so active right now, this Venus-Mars thing, it's a lot of relationship angst and friction in the moment. This is a lot of people fighting, divorces happening. I know in China when they had the lockdown, the divorce rate went up threefold. So I'm sure, if I haven't done the research, that this country, there's a lot of people ready for divorce because it's time for purification. There have been a lot of relationships that really needed to end anyways, and they were too lazy to end them for whatever reason. But in this kind of planetary weather, the relationships that are toxic and are due to end will eventually come to a close. And the relationship between Mars and war and Mars and love is really interesting because Mars governs both. Mars is the planet of passion. So I'm recommending that people, instead of going to war using this energy, and so you can't change the wind, you can change your sails, right? So everyone should be making love and not war. So, or if you can't be making love because you don't have anyone to make love with, then you should be active, play tennis, go on the golf course, get to the gym if you can, if it's not locked down, or do whatever you can, put your TV on and dance around your house, Zumba, whatever you do, but be extremely active because Mars energy is physical. And if you're not directing that energy, it will direct you, and you'll find yourself a victim to displaced aggression, and you'll be lashing out at people and you won't even know why, because it's really unprecedented, but it's just Mars energy. So right now, with all of the four energy of the year, four governing home, four governing four walls, real estate, homeland, United States, portal, departures. With this, it's all about relationship and how can we cohabitate together on the earth and together in one home. Everyone should be, giving each other, allowing each other their own opinion, and no one should be imposing their opinion. If we can all give each other grace and space, then everybody can be more at peace, within the home. This is all about the home, and a lot of homes right now are in violence, literal violence, not necessarily guns and knives, but verbally violent. So we all need to be really careful of that with this intense Mars energy. Mars and Venus are the passion planets of the sky, and they're lit up right now, but for a reason. It's there to purify our families, our homes, our relationships, and we may have to go through a division, a divorce, or something so that we can get to the next chapter with more peace and more harmony. I hope I said that the way you wanted.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Okay, good.
Mars, yeah, so Mars is really the energy that's behind all the social unrest and upheaval right now. You know, he wants to protest, he wants to break the rules. I mean, this is Mars. Like, if you want to know about the planet Mars, just turn your TV on and watch the protests. So, what was I going to say? People are frustrated, you know, and we have to, I think that's why it's just so important during this eclipse season, just take a step back, don't get involved, not in that way, get involved in a peaceful way, get involved and try to just, I mean, none of you here obviously would, but I mean, just, you know, try to protect yourself from that energy because it's out there and it's rampant. The deity that's connected to the lunar nakshatra that the moon will be in for this eclipse, Jyotish, is called Lord Indra. And Donald Trump has his moon there in Jyotish nakshatra. He has a lot going on actually in this Taurus Scorpio house axis. But, you know, it's aggressive and there's a lot of power plays politically, globally. We may see more of that happening, more war, more natural disaster, and also more sexual aggression. That theme is connected to this nakshatra. Right when Rahu went into Mrigasira, the documentary on Jeffrey Epstein came out, and he's a sexual predator, and it's disgusting, but it was like right on the heels of Rahu just going into, I mean, it's just the perfect example of the negative side of that nakshatra. Now, you know, it is competitive energy, like Karyn was saying, and while the moon is here, it's a double whammy because it's Mars and it's Jyotish nakshatra. There are two other nakshatras in the sign of Scorpio that aren't as aggressive, but this one is. So Mars likes to whack things, you know, so we were talking about, you know, croquet in the backyard, tennis, ping pong, all those things are great for this time of year. This is the actual chart of the lunar eclipse that's coming up. And what you see here is you see the sun is here, and then opposite the sun is the moon. The moon will be in Scorpio, the number 8 is Scorpio, and the number 2 is Taurus. So it brings this house here, which is the night, well, there's really no chart with a rising sign, but let's just say these two houses are opposite each other. So in this chart, it's really lighting up this house and this house. So what we're going to do next is talk about the personal effects of the Scorpio lunar eclipse for your chart. Learning through our own personal stories and sharing as we go through people's charts. Everyone has given us permission to use their chart, and we really thank you because it is an amazing learning tool. I learned so much from all my clients and all their charts. And, you know, this is a Sangha. We are sharing, we're telling personal stories, and again, it works as an upaya to soften the negativity of this eclipse. I think we kind of went over this. Will I be eclipsed or illuminated? Trust that all events lead to your greatest good. Will it be positive or negative? Yes, positive events can happen. There's always an element of the unexpected, the transformative, and purification with an eclipse. And just remember that growth is a process. So sometimes things are happening and we don't really see the whole picture, and especially during an eclipse, right, Karyn? It's like not all that information, it's like there, but it's still tightly in that little zip file, and it just doesn't all, it just is, it's a process. It's like a flower opening. So go easy on yourselves.